Hi, everybody. Welcome to Random Bonanza Show. Give me once. I know how to do this, guys. I didn't share the sound. All right. I'm so used to not sharing clips with sound. Here we go. Here's the song.
Bonanza, Bonanza, we're hanging out. It's the Brandon Bonanza Show. Bonanza, Bonanza, we're hanging out on the Brandon Bonanza Show. Hanging out on the Brandon Bonanza Show. Yeah.
Yeah. What is going on, everybody? Welcome officially to the Brandon Bonanza Show. We have a good one for you today. But before we get into it, I have a quote. I actually have 3 quotes for everybody. So we're going to get into that right now. The first quote, they're all by Carl Jung. And the first quote, oops, sorry about that, everybody. I don't know which one I'm sharing right now, actually. Is it about, yes, about a third of my cases are suffering from no clinically definable neurosis, but from the senseless and emptiness of their lives. This can be defined as the general neurosis of our time. All right, that's one. It's I'm gonna bring up the others. It's funny though, because when I share the screen, if I have more than one thing open in that program, for some reason it doesn't put the one that I'm sharing in front of me. Puts another one, so it makes it confusing, and it did it again. Okay. The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. And this one right here, last but certainly not least, it's probably my favorite one of all of them. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. All right. Welcome back to my show, Jeff and Joe. You guys are no strangers to this show or my audience, but if you are new to the show, welcome and thank you for coming to check us out. We do put the Myers-Briggs tags in just to let you guys know what we believe our Myers-Briggs designations are. And if you are somebody who's into that, have fun typing us if you want, or, comment or whatever. But today we're going to be talking about probably a bunch of stuff, but we're going to start off talking about the Anima. But before we really do that, do you guys, either of you have anything you want to say about the quotes, or would you like me to bring them back up or anything like that?
I would like to go last. Gotcha,
Well,
Joe.
thank you. Put me on the spot. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory for the most part. And they're all pretty much articulating the same thing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
bring up any random one because I can't think of it in mind right now.
Yeah, no problem. I like, let's bring up the last one. This one seems to be pretty like the simplest one. It's the shortest one, but it could be the hardest one to really comprehend.
Yeah, that can be interpreted in so many ways. But ultimately, yeah, it's like we don't accept all the aspects of ourselves. We don't accept the negative aspects of ourselves. We try to justify them and push them down, but we don't accept them. That if you're prideful, like you just won't admit it, you suppress it, you don't realize that you're being prideful until it's in your face or you consciously look. So you have to accept what's going on inside you, no matter how negative or painful it is, because that's how one becomes whole. It doesn't mean that you say, okay, I'm prideful. That's a good thing, because it obviously is not. What it is accepting and admitting to yourself that you are prideful, and just becoming aware of that. It's already setting into motion to achieve like a holistic kind of balance.
Yeah, I like that. Let me see. I got lost in where I was. Stop share. There we go. That always does it. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. It's very true. And I feel like, especially the one about the neurosis here. Let me bring that one up too, because I feel like it's the same right now. Like this really is what's going on in society. But I feel like our system of healthcare tries to put labels on different things. But I really feel like this is it. Like there's no clinically definable neurosis, but from senseless and emptiness of their lives. And I feel like really that just comes down to materialism, and a lot of people being rooted in materialism and looking for their happiness out in the material world. What do you think, Jeff?
Um, I mean, first of all, the three quotes are amazing.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think to not um, divert too much from the topic. I mean, last few months I worked on my master's thesis, and this is very much in accord to it. Yeah, mainly with Heidegger, and it's really this technological age, this materialistic age, this only logical age, where we discarded a fundamental part of our soul, of our psyche. And it's missing. It's missing, and we are at a point where we do not realize it's missing anymore. I lack the English terms for Heidegger's thinking, but basically he says that there are like these stages of danger: being in danger, being in grave danger, and being in the, I don't know, utmost danger. And we don't even realize anymore what we are missing. We are so built into the machinery and into this thinking, this logical thinking, that we do not realize anymore that there is another thing, a way of perceiving and being in tune with the world. And I believe that's missing. And I believe this is a very, it's a very good way to work with Jung, with the archetypes, because it's about perception, perceiving oneself, accepting oneself, not thinking it through, but really just perceiving, just taking in the noetic way of thinking. And I believe this is very hard for us and very hard to get into, because we cannot justify it with logic, because it is different. And therefore, even starting and doing the littlest work in that field is already very rewarding, I guess. I hope.
Yeah, I feel it's been rewarding for myself, and I feel like you said it's not really talked about this other way. This, I guess we could call it like intuitional feeling, or this love, right? But it kind of is acknowledged, but I feel like it's relegated to the woo woo areas. It's really only covered in religion or new age or astrology or anything like this, where people who are quote unquote mainstream or have a more materialistic view of the world, which is most people and like most of the sciences that we have, and they tend to look at it as if they take it, they either mock it or they just misinterpret it a lot. You get religions and all this stuff misinterpreting a lot of this information, so it really is in a way, I guess, hidden unless you are a true seeker. And I feel like it's probably been this way throughout all of history, this information, unless maybe sometime there was a golden age and it was like widely practiced. But in the time we find ourselves in now, I feel like this is how it's always been. And that's where that word occult comes from. It's hidden, but it's not really hidden by like a secret group of evil people. It's just hidden from people by their desire to do escapism instead of actually look into this work. And these aren't any judgments. Everybody just is where they are. But I feel like the splits and our misunderstanding and these inversions that we get into all happen really in our society. When we're taught to, and this is something I talk about all the time, but I don't mind just railing on about it. It makes for great content in my eyes anyway. But because we're taught to get all of our validation from external and exterior sources, and so we go all throughout life with people telling us what to do. And as we get older, we have this little voice in our head that tells us, that we're not good enough or whatever it is, these little whisperings that we have. And I feel like that's the imbalance that's going on. And that's kind of what we're going to get into and talk about today. But I just want to lay that a little bit as a foundation. And, I feel like you guys feel this way too. It's not like any of us think this is due to like a secret evil group of people. Like I said before, it really is. I mean, it could be. And yeah, sure, there are secret groups of people you could call evil that are out there making plans for humanity that if you saw, you probably wouldn't like those plans. And I'm sure they exist, but it takes each person individually to make their own choice to follow along with that. And that's really where, when you know that and you truly know it and accept it, that's when the victim narrative kind of goes away. And I just wanted to talk about that, especially in the beginning, because we're not like a truther channel here, everybody. We talk about things that maybe a lot of people don't talk about, could be considered conspiracy or whatever. But the only truth that I'm interested in really is just the truths in myself, really getting to know myself. And that's why this, I think, topic is great.
Yeah, Brandon, can you speak to like you were talking about when we did the last recording, the lecture you just listened to about Alan Watts and how we're lost in a world of symbols? Because I think that ties into exactly what Jeff was just kind of trying to articulate, why things are truly occulted. Because yeah, you just listened to this lecture, so maybe you'd be better to explain it.
Amazing. Yes, I listened to it a couple times. It's this nice 40-minute lecture. And if I remember, I'll put the link below for everybody if you're watching this, you want to check it out. But really, when you boil it down, what he's saying is there's two worlds. There's this world of symbols. There's the real world that's out there that you see with your senses. You interact with it with your eyes, your hearing, your touch, your taste, all this stuff. And then there's this other world that's layered on top of it, that's done by our own consciousness or whatever, our own ego, or however you want to look at it, where when we look now, like if I look out my window, I could say, oh, look, there's trees and there's grass and someone parked their car in the backyard of the neighbor's house and there's a grill. I could do that and name all these things. And while I'm doing that, even to myself, I'm having this dialogue that's constantly going. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but what that's doing is taking me one step away from the real world and what's really out there. Because is that really a car? Is that really a tree? Or is that something that we just labeled it and named it? And now labels and names are good. We in this world, we need to communicate and stuff. But I feel like when people don't realize that distinction and that difference, that label or name that they give something becomes that thing to that person. So now when they're walking around, say you're walking in the woods, you just are labeling everything trees, whatever, and you're not in the experience. You're not looking at the wonder of it. And I feel like that can also take you out of gratitude, a lot of other different things. But really the main point that Alan Watts was, I feel like he was trying to make in this lecture was, you want to be in the real world, not in the world of symbols. The world of symbols, I think, is more connected with the ego. And that has to do, like I said, if you're trying to communicate or something like that. But in your everyday default life, if you can try to be more in the present moment and just focused on what's real as opposed to what we label and name things, you're going to catch a lot more things. I feel like that really is when you're in the driver's seat of life, when you have that view of the world. And things like self-work that we talk about in Alan Watts's view, there really is no work to be done. You already are perfect. If there was any work to do, it's just to figure out that you are perfect. And really what that is just accepting yourself in every moment with all your bullshit, all the things you do that you hate, You just accept it and love it. And what I find is, as you do that, then those things that you do that you're not so proud of or that you hate that you do, they start to go away as you accept them. And we talked about, if you want to check out the last Over Sharon show we did, episode 119, we talked about letting go. And that's a method to get around that stuff. You just start to let it all go. But Joe did a great job, and Spoons is on that with Sharon and myself. So go check out that show. Did I miss anything though? Or do you think, Joe, did I pretty much sum it up?
Yeah, I would just add one further thing is that's what's underneath the symbols. We're not seeing the light, so to speak, because we're replacing it with symbols and abstractions and labels, and we superimposed a man-made, you call it ego-made or collective ego-made world on top of the real world. And what we would call the occult, what is hidden is only hidden because it's under that. And if you could get a glimpse what's under that, you start seeing the underlying principles of consciousness, of what life really is, of what we really are, of what beauty is, of what love is, on and on and on. It's just all that's going on. We're just not paying attention to it because we're blinded by, we're super focused in on the artificial constructs that we superimposed upon the real world. And I'll just leave it at that. So.
And I want to add quickly too, before you get in, Jeff, is some people I think say that psychedelics, when you get that view and you start to what they would say hallucinate, that you're actually getting a truer picture of what you're really looking at. It reminds me of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita when he asked to see Krishna's true form, and Krishna just became the universe, and Arjuna was like, whoa, he's like, all right, that's enough. So maybe that's why, you know, psychedelics don't have, or supposed to not have an effect on people who are like, quote unquote, super enlightened or whatever. But even if that isn't exactly the case, it's still about seeing what's really there as opposed to what you think is there. Because even our vision, our field of vision, if you study it and you look into it, it's been proven, or they talk about how a lot of people will see these optical illusions because their brain is just filling in stuff. Your brain is very efficient, and it's, if you already have this focus that you're not too worried about what's out there, your brain just kind of showing you what's there to give you an idea. And I notice it myself because of years of meditation and all the stuff, how more in the present moment, that I'll notice a lot more things than other people do, especially animals. I'm constantly noticing like wild animals when I'm driving around or somewhere. Yesterday we saw like a beaver, some deer. I mean, but anyway, Jeff, what were you gonna say?
That's so cool, man, with the noticing animals. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, the psychedelics, man. Well, horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
Joe and I, we talked the other day with letting go, and when it comes up, and he taught me a bit about, because I had an acute episode of having to let go. So I asked him to elaborate a bit. And yeah, it's really like with this, when the energy comes and it's like stuffy here and all. And I remember when I took mushrooms, I was undressing and then crouching before a bush and then throwing up for an hour. That was only energy and only it was so many things got resolved. It was just crazy, man. Oh, this is psychedelics are no joke. And other people, they have like these amazing things. A friend, he was flying next to a comet, and then he landed in the desert and he talked to Jesus. I'm just sitting at the campsite, and there's like this translucent snail crawling towards me and tormenting me. And I have legs like a spider, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck, man? Everything hurts. What the fuck, man? It's just, can somebody give me a hug? I don't know. Psychedelics are hell, but they're so effective because my thinking usually is hell as well.
Yeah. Mine was too, man. Like, I just think of like like when you gave me the Amazonians.
Yeah.
That was I mean I always say I have only had two trips because the first trip I had was pretty good. The second one started off good, went bad, and I don't know, I had five more after that maybe, and it was always picking up right where I left off on the bad one. So I always say I've only had two trips. I had one good trip, I had one bad one, but the bad one would happen six times. But it was the same trip. I just jumped in where I left off, and I realized it as soon as I got there. I'm like, "What the fuck did I do? I got out of here. Why am I back?" Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, man. And one thing I could say is that literally was when I was really into the truther stuff. So I was in a really negative vibe back then, really, and I had all these theories and beliefs and charges going on. I was unaware at the time, but so I take these mushrooms. I even had the intention going in, I'm gonna have a spiritual experience, and nope,
Yeah.
I went jumped right back in where I left off the last time, and I realized in retrospect I was resisting the fuck out of the trip. And the more I resisted it, the harder I would trip. Like the more I would try to get away from it, the harder I would and more intense the trip would become. And it literally, I don't know how many hours it went on, but there came a point where I'm like, I'm just gonna open my laptop and put on some comedy or something. And I found like a Dave Chappelle special, and I started watching it like on my laptop at like towards the end of the trip, and I'm like, oh, like a Beavis and Butter kind of thing. Like it was, I realized it was funny, but because the trip was going on, it wasn't funny. But the more I was doing that, I started realizing I'm holding on so tightly. And as soon as I was able to let go and just be normal and just enjoy the comedy special, the trip went away. And that was the end of the trip. Unfortunately, I went back one more time after that. I don't learn my lesson easy sometimes, but at this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm never touching psychedelics. Fuck that. Like, it's just
Yeah.
but it did taught me things in retrospect. It taught me about lessons that I've learned many years later now, like in retrospect, seeing what was going on, seeing what was happening, and realizing that all the mushrooms did was add another frequency, and I resisted that frequency and put myself into the mushroom realm. And so I got another perspective from the perspective I was living in my life that particular time. So what it did was it shifted me out of my comfort zone into a different perspective. And then when the trip was over, I was like, all right, I'm not going back to where I was. I definitely not going back to the mushrooms, but there's got to be somewhere in between, like that I could fucking find myself in. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, they can be a great teacher for sure.
Mhm.
Really quick shout out Cosmic Lichens, Joe. That's the other Joe. What's good? Warning, Skydome. What's up? And Wasem CH says, "Can you send mushrooms to Lebanon? We don't have them here." And I was like, "I don't have any, but maybe get some spores and grow them." Because I'm sure if I sent mushrooms to Lebanon, I might get on a list.
You gotta look for acacia and stuff like that. And oh man, there are so many things to take. I mean, nearly everything is psychedelic to a degree, so you're really gonna figure out how to take it. So yeah,
I also heard meditation can get you there too if you just get a strict meditation practice.
yeah,
But go ahead.
I
What were
would
you
recommend that. I became boring and spiritually mainstream as well. Do the fucking meditation. Shut up, stop thinking, do the meditation, because psychedelics will not do the work for you. I mean, you just take the psychedelics and then you have panic attacks for 2 years until you have integrated it. So, I mean, it's no joke. It is no joke. And I mean, I have been through some heavy stuff after that. And I'm one of the unfortunate individuals that started thinking early and deep before I understood what the world really means. And no, this is psychedelic. I don't know, man. This is like on your own risk. You can lose your sanity. Really, this is because not everyone can do it on their own. It's you got to be a hardcore motherfucker to do that on your own and be comfortable with laying in your own shit. And for this is just really yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
I literally think I experienced hell, like a realm of hell when I was on mushrooms. Not that the mushrooms in and of themselves would put you there, because people have different subjective experiences, But what it did was kind of shed light on all the really bad, dark stuff that was inside of me. And as I resisted the mushrooms and all that stuff working together, not just the mushroom feeling, but all those feelings inside created that experience. And I literally went into hell. And I could say that in that realm, that space, um, like time seemed to stop. It didn't stop it. We will say it was just like a grain of sand at a time kind of deal, where time would not pass. So normally, what we do to escape our feelings, we want to pass it through time. And now I can't do that. Fuck. Like, and now I'm stuck in this space where time is dragging and everything's so fucking heavy and the emotions and the thoughts and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a realm of hell. I pushed myself into one of the lower astrals that, people say, oh, there's no hell. And it's like, but you believe in lower astrals, right? So obviously, if you believe in lower astrals, what would that be? What would be another name for that? So, and there's many levels to that I've found, but I found myself in one of those experiences, and it did prompt change. So psychedelics did, I guess, in the long term help me, but in the short term, it was fucking torture, man. There's better ways. There really are better fucking ways. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, for the skeptic, it's a good thing because I mean, it fucked up everything for me. It's just I realized there is nothing solid. It's all in the mind, and the mind is in the world, and the world is in the mind, and it's no matter how you justify it, it's just, of course, you've taken the mushroom, but you also know that you are God and you are just imagine that. And then everything turns dark, and then you realize you ruined the world, and now you have to recreate it, and you don't know how to do it, and you know it will take eons again until you finally get it, and you hate it. I mean, I. So, and it's really, and there was a trip like that, and then I got back, and it wore off, and it was really like it was in the morning because usually we tripped in the forest during nighttime on the bonfire, and then I was laying in the bed, and it felt like there were like thick chains, like in an anime, and then everything just it's like, and I was so happy. I'm like, I am, this life is an island where I can just be one at a time. And that was when I fell in love, like seriously. I fell in love with life. And I'm like, life is so amazing, and I am happy to have life because I know there will be chaos afterwards again, until I can be reborn. That 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 the experience, I am so happy to be alive because it's just so, yeah, it's amazing. Um, it's like we had this quotes. Let me just look because there was one thing. Um, Senselessness, emptiness, fundamentally insoluble. Yeah, this one trip I have to elaborate a bit. It was different ones. It was not the Amazonians, the dark ones. It was Mazatepec, I guess. And they were cool. I took them at home, and it took me a whole day to have the guts to eat them. So I made a tea, and I called Matthias. He's a spiritual being par excellence. He's crazy. And he talked to me on the phone for hours, and then I ingested the tea, and then as soon as I had it down, I'm like, fuck, I don't want this. So yeah, it was okay. I put on a marshmallow suit and all these things, and to kind of like shield myself from the trip, and it worked. And put pillows around myself and everything at home, and then there was this golden gong, like really like woo, everything was golden, and I heard the primal sound, and I felt it was amazing, and then I was like, all right, let's solve my problems. And then I was laying down in bed, and I had like because I was a very spiritual person. I had like these painted not rocks, wall hangings and stuff, and everything was like real hippie-ish. And then I was laying there, and then there was a little sunlight coming in through the window, and I'm like, oh man, I'm in a desert. I'm in a tent, in a Bedouin tent in the desert. Oh my, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, let's solve my problems that I have, my internal problems, my mother wound, my father wound, all these things. I'm like, yeah, let's do the work. And then I'm laying there, and like, I can't, because there's nothing to do. What the fuck, man? And I was just laying there, and I'm like enjoying that I'm laying in the desert. I was in a perfect state of mind, so open, and there was no problem to be solved. It's just was all internal, and I just made myself comfortable, and it was just wonderful.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're not solving problems on psychedelics. You're creating problems that you have to
Yeah,
solve them.
yeah, mostly.
Or you're having fun and being a party animal, but then you're lost anyways. All the people who I know who took mushrooms for partying, they never resolved anything in their life. I
Mm.
mean, cool guys, but not on that level that we are talking.
Yeah, it's like I've known people who've taken psychedelics my whole life, and very seldom do they better people. Usually it makes people fucking worse, to be honest. So all these people are like, all we gotta do is give everybody mushrooms and the world's problems will be saved. I'm like, nah, dude. I've known people my whole life taking mushrooms. They're not much better, man. Like they're just as messed up, if not more messed up now. Um so yeah, it's like I did the mushrooms and that was an interesting experience, but I also smoked salvia twice, which is intense psychedelic. It only lasts 5 minutes, but it feels like an eternity while you're gone in that 5 minutes. And it's an interesting psychedelic because it's different than like mushrooms or peyote or LSD, which mess with the serotonin and create like a vibe. And you're in a just, a sense you're in this realm still, but now you have that utter psychedelic realm as well. And there's like a mixture of it going on, and it distorts reality, so such and such. But salvia is a little different. It literally in the brain disconnects your five senses. So in sense you smoke it, and then all the input from your five senses is no longer there, so now you're left with what's left. And it was so I can't even articulate what, like mushrooms I can explain it, but salvia I could not articulate what the fuck happened. Like I could not articulate. It was I found myself in a different realm. There was life in this realm, but they were more shapes and color than anything you would recognize. It was all very non-linear. It's just so foreign. Even me thinking about it now, I was like, I don't even know what the fuck happened there. And I did it twice, and it was like it's another thing I'm never gonna go back, because it's like it only lasts 5 minutes, but you literally feel like you lived a lifetime there. And then you start coming to in about 5 minutes. And I remember coming to and realize all of a sudden the room started coming back. And then I was like ran to the window. It was the middle of winter. I flung the window open. I was like trying to get air in. Please, air. Like get this shit out of my system. Get it out. Get it out. And yeah, that was a very interesting experience. But it's like in retrospect, comparing it to everything else I've learned in my entire life, I could get have a little meaning, a little context there. But like in and of itself, man, it's like, yeah, that's kind of the issue with psychedelics there.
It reminds me of when people ask me about the Marine Corps. They're like, "Oh, you were in the Marines," or like, "Should I join the Marines?" And I'm like, "Ah." They're like, because it helped me. There's a lot of positive benefits I could see. It was a different time than it is now. I was in during the '90s, but with psychedelics, when people ask me that, I always tell them I didn't do mushrooms until I was like in my mid 30s, maybe even mid to late 30s the first time. And I was doing it looking for answers. Um, and I feel like if you're right on the edge right there, it could crack the egg for you. You can have a good experience. But like you guys said, there's so many stories of especially people who are into this kind of stuff that we're into, because we're always looking for truth and truth about ourselves. And sometimes the truths we seek are just a little bit too much for us to handle, I guess you could say. And they might send you off in another area of like escapism, or who knows. Or you, like you said, you just are in hell for a few hours. I think the last couple times I did mushrooms, they didn't really have much of an effect on me, as far as visually. It was just more internally, and I just had a stomach ache the whole time. Really, I had like pressure in my stomach. It was really weird. So I don't know. The enlightened beings allegedly say that they're kind of like a shortcut to get to these realms, but if you know anything about shortcuts, sometimes when you're there before you're ready to be, you're just thrust into a situation, then you know it's gonna. So I would suggest, at least if you're somebody who's thinking of doing mushrooms or psychedelics, I would say meditate for a while, get a meditation practice going at least for 6 months or a year, because that also helped me, because I noticed when I started to slip off in areas where I wasn't excited about it, I could just kind of let it go, because the meditation was like that same muscle I was using. So I guess that's all I would have to say about that. We're not suggesting them YouTube for people to use, don't worry. It's like anything else, it's a tool, you got to be careful.
I believe it's like what you said, joining the military, or taking psychedelics. I believe there are experiences that are transforming, that are life changing, and we have, when we have been through certain experiences, we realize that, and we do understand that it's not our place to make that decision for somebody else. Because when somebody says like, should I take it or not, they're not taking responsibility, in a way. They're trying to feel the water first, and it's like, oh, is it good, is it not good? We cannot say if it's good or not good, because we are not you. And
Yeah,
it's a responsibility, and in the end it's like, oh yeah, you told me to do that, and now I lost a leg in my dick and stuff like that. It's just, it's like asking somebody, should I do it, should I not do it? It's putting responsibility on these people, um, for your own life. So this, I say no. Don't do it. Stay ignorant. Love love the
exactly.
life and love yourself. Life is good. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I guess you could say something like to somebody like, why, what about you makes you think you're not perfect, or why, what aspect of you don't you accept that makes you want to take these mushrooms? Like that's the only thing I could say to somebody, like if somebody now asks me for any kind of spiritual advice, it's like, just you're perfect, and just you just got to realize that you're perfect. That's all I can tell you. Like God thinks you're perfect because God made you. Who am I to argue with God? So obviously you're perfect, and if you could figure that out, then maybe your life will get better, or you have some of this ease. Because you're right. Ram Dass talks about this a lot, where when they first started doing psychedelics, they would do it, and then they would start to come down, and they'd have, he described this one thing where there's like a cloud coming toward him that was like his ego kind of, and there was no way to get away from it, and he just came back, and it was like this depression that set in after a while, because they knew this place where they could go, but they can only go there with this drug, and they can only stay there for a few hours. They couldn't be there all the time. And the key, I think, to being there all the time or close is just to accept that you're perfect. And one of the ways is letting go, or meditation, all that stuff. But Joe, it looked like you were going to say something, so I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you in the sense that yes, you have to realize the perfection of not only yourself but all of existence,
Yeah,
and that everything is happening for a reason, and there's no one to blame a lot of the times. It's just how things are playing out. And there's all kinds of negativity that's in ourselves, and that's also in all the people that we point our fingers to. And we can see how those energies play out in ourselves. And then you can see how they play out collectively and in others, and our controllers, or people we call, or whoever. Like, and we try to blame them, but we're all a part of it. Like, and so it's like, if you can't point a finger at them without pointing a finger at yourself. That's the ultimate truth of the matter. And there is a perfection under all these clouds, so to speak. um the thing is, yes, underneath, and we have to realize our own perfection, But let's just be honest. If we're seeking psychedelics, if we're seeking spirituality, whatever that is, whatever system we're looking into or whatever, what does that imply? It implies that we have not got there yet. Or why would we be seeking? Why are we seekers if we're already there? If you're already, like you were saying, if we're already in Myrtle Beach, why the fuck are we, like, why would we be worrying about getting to Myrtle Beach? So yes, you are perfect under it, but there is work to do, and that's removing what's blocking you from seeing it as perfect. But don't go like, okay, I'm trying to be spiritual and I'm going to force it and make a belief system out of it that I'm perfect. You obviously do not believe that, or you would not be seeking right now. Because if you're already there, there's nothing to seek anymore. So it's just that's part of the being honest about this. Yes, you're perfect, but you got work to do to see that perfection, and you can't fake it. Like, because you give yourself away at the very that you're seeking, it gives it away because there'd be no seeking if you already were there, so to speak. So so just yes, you're perfect, but also accept there's a process that needs to unfold. So
Yeah, there's such an interesting thing where we can slowly. I mean, we are already on the way to the Anima. People don't realize. What you said was so interesting with Salvia, that you were in I call it hyperspace, really, like in a space with geometric forms and all these things. And that's what I had when I destroyed the world on psychedelics as well. I was just in a space where there was light and colors and geometric forms just speeding at me. And I find it very interesting. And I was thinking, yeah, how did somebody like Plato get the thought of there is this eternal place of the eternal forms and the eternal images, the eternal patterns, the paradigma and the eidos? And I mean, it's just all the traditions. If you look at them, they have psychedelics, take psychedelics, or get into a different state of mind where they access something like that. I'm pretty convinced that this is a part of it. I mean, even in Masonry, there's an element of psychedelics, and in Christianity and all. There's always somebody arguing that anything is psychedelic. But yeah, this is. I find it so interesting that I don't know. I'm trying not to make a turn that's too angular. Mm. We are in a time. We don't realize what time we are living in, really. In philosophy, people say everything, all the philosophy that we're doing in the West is just a footnote to Plato. And when I studied philosophy, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't so interested in Plato as well, but recently when I worked on it, the Timaeus, for example, ooh, everything is a footnote to Plato. Carl Jung, his philosophy of the psyche is a footnote to Plato, a very direct one. He even says it all the time, and I was not aware of that. And that is so interesting, and I think it's very healing to understand the situation that we're in, where we're coming from. So basically, we are like our ancestors culturally, no matter if we are in Germany, Europe, or in North America. Our ancestors are the ancient Greeks culturally. And the Romans, they came after that. They were just a slight deviation from that, but the philosophy was basically ancient Greek. The whole religion, Christianity, is an amalgamation. So everything, so it's very valuable to understand where we're coming from. And when we talk about the archetypes, anima is an archetype. We have, I think it's very, it helped me a lot to understand what the archetypes are and how profound it is. It's not just that somebody was like, no, there are these figures and they're just doing something inside of me, these spirits or whatever, or this or that. It's not as easy as that. And it's just everything changed with philosophy. It started before Plato, more than 2,500 years ago. And there were like these guys who were like, yeah, we have the Iliad and we have Homer, we have the you know, the Odyssey and all that. We have those stories. It's the mythos. And people live with the mythos, and there's the gods, the mythos of the gods, and there's the, you know, the stories of the heroes and everything. And people understood their own self and the world, and they were very much in the world. The Greeks, we cannot possibly understand the Greeks just from reading what they wrote, because the distinction between the Greek, the city, the society, the people, nature, the gods, it was not there. That they were very much intertwined. And we are very, very different. We are in a very, very different mindset. And there were these people who said, like, yeah, there's this mythos, the Icos mythos. It's like the mythos is a story that claims to be true and tell truth. It's not that the mythos is just, yes, it's a myth, a conspiracy myth. It's like they used to say nowadays, you know. No, it's not like that. It's the mythos is a story that claims to convey truth. And then there were like these philosophers who came up with the idea, yeah, I don't like that. I don't want a myth. I look at nature and everything, and I see there's something happening. And why is this growing? Why is this happening? Why do I pick this swine's intestines and it makes bing, and then I hold it short, it makes boom, you know? Why? And then they go and they experiment, and then they're more and more and more, and they're more systematic. The term of the system didn't even exist. It was only after Plato in the Stoa that they came up with nature is a system, everything is a system, people, the body is a system and all. So and it went further and further and further, and people were thinking and contemplating and arguing. And they said, like, yeah, we got to be more logic, and there's a whole chain of events. There's like more than 2,500 years where science, as we know, stemmed from the episteme, the sensing, the which is different than the noetic sensing, and it just became more and more systematic until in German it's Neuzeit, the new age, literally the new age, you know, electrification, cars, all the systems that collapsed into all those mass society systems that became all the isms that torment the world so much, and we had world wars over that shit and all. And that's all the culmination of science and technology. And in order to get there, we had to eradicate a part of who we are, and we had to throw out the Icos mythos. We digested, we dissected, we analyzed, took apart everything in nature, everything about ourselves, the bodies, the plants and all. And we're like, why is it growing? Why is it doing that? Why is it doing this? And we this is Heidegger right now, and we look, what is the energy behind it, and then we find out what the energy is, and then we replicate it and we use it and we make machinery, and we grow stuff, and we manipulate the genetics and all these things, and we realize that everything works. But that there is something that we're only taking the energies out of everything, but so much is lost, and everything is empty. And there we have Carl Gustav Jung, for example, who didn't come up with all these things by himself. He read Plato, the old Greeks. He later read the Kabbalah, which is not, I mean, really, guys, read the Kabbalah, work on this, because this is not just Jewish. It's civilization, you know. Get away from it's the Jews, it's this, it's that. Just read everybody's stuff. It's really valuable, and it came from Freud, Adler, all these other people. Jung already thought about genetics and all these things. It's very interesting, and it's so much more than what we see on YouTube. It's just not enough to study at the YouTube University when we want to learn about Jung. It's not enough.
Yeah.
And it's just such an elaborate thing, and it comes back to the Greeks as well. And that's the thing. And Carl Gustav Jung brings back the mythos. And there was a long trajectory now, but I think it's really, really important to understand that this is a revival. This is a very, it's a very conservative movement. Very, very arch conservative. Because he says Heidegger tried that too. Or he wanted to go there, and they were all like in the same age, more or less, But they, they were like in the zeitgeist influenced them, and they tried to find a way to deal with that, so that we are not just the natural energies that we can derive from the atom and all, but that we are more. And yeah, the psyche, and it's really interesting with the psyche. I mean, we should talk about that as well, what that even means. But maybe I should make a pause here for a moment before I speak about that, because it's really important to understand that.
Yeah.
Or should I go on?
Well, I'll just add one thing. One thing I've noticed with Carl Jung and Heidegger, compared to the other philosophers and psychiatrists that they built their work upon, was they became more nonlinear. They literally saw behind this world of symbols, versus Freud, who took it to the max and then was stuck because he was still in this world of symbols. And he was right to a large degree. His model is correct in a sense, but Jung took it further and looked behind the veil, and so did Heidegger. So in that sense, those two really jumped to the next level and got out of the linear realm and into the nonlinear realm, where they could start seeing that which was occulted. So, but yeah, I'll let you talk now.
I wanted to say also really quickly, when we're talking about this world of symbols in the real world versus the real world, it reminds me of when Jesus said to be in the world, not of it. You could be in the world, but not of the world. It has, as you guys were talking about different things, it just popped into my head. We're talking about like being in the world and stuff. And I really feel like that's what he meant. It's like you can go and you could interact, and you are interacting with the world, right? Every second, even if you're not outside, whatever, this is the world, the realm. And but to be of the world is to identify with it and think that that's what you are, when we really, it's just a mystery. We really have no idea what the heck we are.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not aware what Jung says about that. I'm aware of what Heidegger says, and he says, yeah, we are thrown into the world. We just wake up one day and we are here. This is just utterly ridiculous to ask where we come from. It's just, we are here. Done. And what being here means, that's interesting. But, like, and not... it's very complicated, so let's not get into this. but yeah, we established that there has been the human condition for a long, long time, until 2,500 years ago, was that we had mythos, stories, the anthropomorphic element, that nature and all that. It's just, you know, we saw, and nowadays, and it's very helpful to get into chaos magic to really understand that. You know, there's subject and object, and we tend to think that we are subjective or subject, and our body is object, so we are subject and object, and the world is object. But in chaos magic, the world also has a subjective part, and we communicate with it, and that subjective part does something as an answer, and that gives us the desired result. And that is the state that the Greek people were living in, the ancient Greeks. And Carl Gustav Jung does the same. We see the world as that there's consciousness. There is a consciousness, and that there is something very elemental about it. That's why I am no longer a conspiracy theorist or anything. I strive to be an ancient Greek, because it dissolves all the problems that we are having in our thinking. Everything. It's very interesting, and we have to talk a long time about that some other day. But it's really, it's just, we do not need to come up with anything new. We just have to look at what we had. Because like the logos, we are so far in our logos, you know. It's an amazing achievement. It's not shit. Technology is not shit. It's amazing. It's amazing, and life is better than it ever was. It's just that we are missing something. And with Jung's psychology, we can integrate that very easily, with a lot of work and pain, but we have a chance to integrate all that without being dogmatic, so to say. And it's so interesting. I mean, are people aware of what psychology even is? I wasn't. Carl Jung, he studied the Greeks and Torah and Kabbalah and everything, Christianity. He refers to the Asian religions and systems and all a lot of times. So all those systems. And he came from Freud. Freud was a secular Jew, but everything, and that there are white papers. There are a lot of papers on that. There is a serious academic discourse on Freud and Kabbalah. Like that's the thing. We don't have to be YouTube truthers in order to discover the secrets, because the academic discourse that we shy away all the time is doing like those fringe things. We just don't know about that.
Yeah. Yep.
We would wonder what crazy stuff people talk about in academia.
Mm.
It's just really crazy, and we are just in a bubble, you know. This is, but so Freud, he came from a lot of Jewish things, you know, the world, the psyche being in three parts. I don't know the English thing. It's it, I guess, the id, ego, and what, super ego or so.
Yep.
And I guess that's what my question is like if the anima is derived from the super ego somehow, but or more like it's a very different thing, but it's derived somehow, and I think it helps to understand that. I'm losing my train of thought. The psyche. there's philosophers, Søren Kierkegaard was kind of like the first philosopher, existentialist and all. And it's like, yeah, the inner workings and what does it mean, what's going on. But what is the psyche? The psyche is from psyche. It's an ancient Greek word, and it's not really the translation for butterfly, but it can be a translation somehow. And if you look at it, I mean, the conspiracy theorists will know all that if they studied Project Monarch and all these things, the evil people, you know, mind control and all. We have that bone, the face. We have the face, and then we have behind the face, behind the eyes, here is a bone, and it's shaped like a butterfly. And behind that is the cranium. And the cranium is roundish. And Plato said, or was it Aristotle? I don't know. Yeah. And we have this round form. And it's round because there's the logos. The logos is in there. They're perfect forms. And because it's round, it's the perfect form. And then we have the face, and the face is all the emotions. It's the world, you know? And in between is this bone where all the nerve, I think all the facial nerves go through. So this bone is the mediator between the face, the you know, the nature, what's the physics, and the perfect forms, the paradigma. And this is it's the psyche, it's the psyche. And it's the mediator. The psyche is the mediator between the unseen world that's forever, ever being, and the always becoming world, which is unstable, which is always being born. I would suggest everybody read the Timaeus. It's really interesting how they see the world and all, and how it with the demiurge and demiurgos and all these things. But it's like really the psyche is not a thing in itself, but it's a mediator. It's a sheath, and everything underneath is occult. Everything underneath is occulted, and that helped me a great deal when Jung speaks about the collective unconscious, because it's like, even like Plato, he said, like, you know, the world was made. The demiurgos, the public craftsman. It's not demi like demigod, but it's demio like public. The public worker, like who is a society. Everybody is the demiurgos. He's basically man. He's the dick. He's the phallus. You know, he's the lingam, and he has his two balls, and those two balls are logos, logical thinking, and nous, noetic thinking. It's noetic thinking is perception, and the logos is is understanding those things, language and all that. And he takes that and interjects that into the chora. The chora is basically a vessel. It's space. It's primordial space. And chora is, in the Iliad, is black earth, or the cosmic womb, the cosmic mother. And he injects his knowledge, and he orders the cosmic mother. And what's inside is chaos. It's darkness. That's why we have that female nature is the dark and the chaotic nature, because we did not know what happens in the womb. It was just, we did not know. It was just chaos, and the father stuck his everything in, and then he ordered everything, and a baby came out. So that's where everything comes from. It's not sexist, it's beautiful. And then the world came to be. It's like the primordial ooze. It's like the ether, the prima materia. Or what quantum physics comes about is like that the basic field, where the quarks are bubbling out of nothing.
Like potential.
Yeah, yeah, and the Earth was made in that primordial space out of the primordial soup. But before the Earth was made, the Demiurgos, and it's not a bad guy. It's only later it's a bad guy with the Christians, because they had to shun all the other gods and everything else that was not the Christian god. And before that, the Demiurgos made the soul. And the soul is the Psyche. And he made the world soul. And it engulfs the world, the planet Earth. And the planet Earth is alive. It is a living entity, but it is so perfect that it does not need ears or eyes or anything. So it has the perfect form. It's roundish because it's content in itself. And we are all living. So, and the Demiurgos created all the lower gods, because it was still Greece with the lower gods. And he created the lower gods, and the lower gods created, split this soul apart and all the other little souls. So we are sub-souls of the collective soul that is this planet. There's nothing new agey about it. It's just 2,500 years old knowledge, Pythagorean knowledge. And everything we have nowadays that is shunned, or that is so scary and this is called, is just neo-Pythagoreans. It's beautiful. And here we have a really serious entrance point into the inner workings that is not occulted anymore, that is mainstream psychology. And that is accessible to everybody. And I think that's the beauty about it. And that's why I really need to talk about it and learn how to deal with that, because that I don't know yet.
Man, I'm really glad I showed up today. That was pretty cool. I learned a lot right there, man. That's so cool. Yeah, what came to my mind was yeah, I've been going back into David R. Hawkins' work lately. We did a show the other day, and something that came to mind what he was saying was you could think of the ego as like an information probe from that world behind the veil you were just talking about to this world. And it's not that the ego, that's what everybody who misinterprets it thinks that, okay, the ego just disappears. Well, no, not exactly. From what I understand, it gets transcended. There's even like if you think of Buddhism, that cartoon with the ox, right? It's about the ego. It's about not getting rid of the ox. It's about taming the ox. And now he rides into town on the ox because now the ox is tame because it's been brought into balance, back to logos. So, that's actually more of what goes on. Is the I becomes more of your true self that's under the ego, because the ego is not just, it's just how you need, it's like a tool. It's an information probe to communicate back and forth between the worlds, and it's just out of control at the moment. So as the work goes on, it's not like the ego goes away. It just becomes more imbalanced, becomes more in line with logos, and then you realize it's not the real me anymore. When I say I, it's not the ego, it's what's behind the ego, or to which it is arising. And this also works with the collective. So what you're saying about the collective soul being broken down, there is a collective ego, so to speak, also arising, but we've been fragmented into our individual selves, and it's an aspect of the bigger ego, or the collective unconscious, so to speak. or yeah, you could think of it like that. So yeah, man, when you were saying, I was like, yeah, totally. And it's so interesting. It makes me want to go like look more back into the ancient Greeks. So interesting, man.
You still have all my Plato books, so
Yeah, somewhere.
you only gotta find
And it reminds me in symbolism of the symbol you'd see like an ankh, actually, because the round part would be the brain, and then the cross part is the physical, where you're, and the butterfly that you were talking about in the middle of the head is like this bridge or doorway between the worlds. And it's like blowing my mind that you said that, because all these things came to mind, like the round behind and then just the flat. It's just amazing, because everything that's back here is encapsulated, and everything out here, you can even look at it as an infinity, right? There's an 8, but everything here isn't really what you would say physical, but it's what you're projecting, is what's behind it. So yeah, that's wow. I'm just like, my brain's melting over here. And even Quiet Sparky where it said gravy overload, yes, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
I am. Yeah, it's and then Tony said, is your physical body connected to this realm, or is your soul more connected to your body? I would say, to answer that question from my point of view, would be more that I think we're just inverted. Everything really is internal, and we're kind of just tricked into believing it's out there. Physical things aren't really real, they're just energy. And so, yeah, that's pretty much where I'd start from the baseline.
Yeah, I
and
actually you could follow the logic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead, go
It's
ahead.
like if you look, you can see the logic behind it. That's why spirituality does have logic to it. It's just beyond the logic that we're used to because it's just so nuanced. It's non-linear. So it's just so you're seeing there's so many logic when you look at non-linear going on. But for instance, like okay, you cannot experience the body without the mind. Can you experience any sensations of the body without the mind? No, you can't. So then you go to the next level. Okay, can the mind experience itself? No, it has to happen within consciousness. So consciousness is there and experiences, and then you experience the mind, and then you experience the body. And then you go further. Consciousness cannot be without awareness, pure awareness, that infinite silence that's underneath everything, that infinite void, that infinite peace to which everything is arising. So you got awareness to consciousness to mind to body. And you could take it the awareness even further. Where is that coming from? It's coming from, you could say, the light of God. You work out the logic however you want, but that should kind of like answer like the question or what he was just saying. Like it's there's like Brandon was saying, we're so focused on the external, but it's more internal. You go, there's levels as you go in and in and in. And without that level of the level of awareness, there would be no consciousness. Without consciousness, there would be no mind. Without mind, there would be no body. Without body, no body, no physical world. So it's like you just keep pulling back, pulling back, pulling back. And as the clouds go away, you naturally start realizing what's behind the next level and what's behind the next level and what's behind the next level. And you get a bigger vantage point, so to speak, which because it like awareness encompasses all consciousness, right? And consciousness technically is all minds, not just my mind, your mind. All of consciousness has minds, and then the minds have bodies, and bodies into the physical realm. So it's like you can trace the logic back. There is a logic to spirituality. People will say it's all woo woo, or you can't prove spirituality. It's like, no, because you're not looking into the right spirituality. You're just making shit up. So, but if you actually look at what's really going on, which takes looking within, know thyself, and you know God in the universe. So that's the key here. So anyway.
yeah, totally. And that is what I mean. What was that healing moment for me is that I don't have to live on the fringes of society anymore, trying to find out what the world is, because I can just be an ancient Greek. Because all who further society and the human quest are. Jung was, Freud in a way as well. Heidegger definitely was. I mean, the thing is, for example, when you and with Heidegger, I want to come to that question. What I personally think about it, with a body-mind connection. Like in German, people tend to mock Heidegger for his weird way of writing and his weird language. And in a newer biography, it's even very pronounced that it's like koan, it's Zen. And Heidegger is Zen, definitely. There's a Zen master, Miss Yoshiko Oshima. She lives in Freiburg, and I had the honor to sit with her. And she teaches Heidegger because she says it is Zen for the German mind. And he goes back to the Greek thought. He deliberately goes back, and that's why everything he writes sounds like the old translations of Plato and all. And he tries to go back to the Greeks. And this thing with the body and mind, spirit, matter, idealism, materialism. It's I had to work with that as well in the philosophy studies, and I found it utterly ridiculous to believe that how could that even be? And there is no answer. It's like that split already happened with Plato at some sort when he said like there's this perfect form, the paradigma, the perfect blueprint for everything, and then we can access it with our thinking, and then it can project out and back into the natural world. And Plato never intended to say, yeah, there's the spirit, and it's different from the material world. There was never the intention. He said just that there's layers. There is just, when we have a computer, we don't say this is the hardware, the material, and this is the software, the spirit, unless we are into Warhammer. But this is just, we would never say like, oh yeah, we have to think about what is first, the program or the machine or everything. And it's just, we come, it's hard for me to explain it, how I think it. But basically, like the computers and all that's cybernetics, and that's just trying to emulate the humans, at least Turing's cybernetics. And we would never have the idea like, the program is the program first, or is the computer, the hardware first? No, we are like yeah, both goes together. One doesn't work without the other, and I believe that gives peace of mind. I mean, when we are really serious with each other, when I'm serious with myself, it's just my escapism. It's like I want the spirit to be eternal, so that I can get out of this fucked up situation that I find myself in. Because life is not the way I want to have it. This is where I arrive at. And it might piss off people, and I don't care. Get as offended as you like.
Get as offended as you want, folks.
So, and that is why, and I think it's very necessary or very relevant to say like Heidegger is Zen and all, because I think in terms of Heidegger, because he thinks in modern terms like a Greek, ancient Greek. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter because we are here and it will not change. And when we're not here, then we're not here. But we are here. We are thrown into the world, and here we are. And there's the phenomenon that is the world outside, and there's the phenomenon of the suffering that's inside, and the pleasure that's inside, and the love and the hate and everything, and everything is just going together. So it's just utterly the Greek, and there is in I think in the Nicomachean Ethics, I don't know how it's in English, of like one of Aristoteles' leftover fragments. I think he's even mocking the idea of this. We are here, done. We are in nature. We are part of nature. We are different than nature. We work a bit different. Nature has autopoiesis. It creates out of itself, and we have technopoiesis. We create with our mind and all. And both is necessary. We are in this world, and the gods are with us, and we are alive. And then we die. We conquer in between or not. And and I think it's a healthy thing. And because we think, oh, there's the soul and the redemption and the world after it, because um, we are literally primed in our thinking to worship a death cult, a death god. And if you're into chaos magic, Yahweh and the God of the Old Testament, the Abrahamic God, is the God of death. Because we have to worship him in our life, and then when we die, we get the reward. It's a death god. And this is what Nietzsche said, and Heidegger then as well, and Hölderlin, and the Romantics, and everybody. It's bullshit. We are here. We are here, and we are not escaping. Why would we escape? The Demiurgos, the god, made this world for us in his love the best way he could. Why would we want to get out of here? Why? It's just amazing here. I mean, we get to eat and it's tasty or not. We get to enjoy the sunshine and then we get to run and lift weights and then we feel great and we get to fight and conquer and whatever, we get to love and have all these experiences. And I don't care if the soul or this or that. So the thing is it's not about answering this question, but it's about coming to terms with that this question is not a question to be answered. That's why it's Zen. That's why we are just here. And now we deal with it. And because everything is already perfect. This life as it is amazing. It's a game. It's a game of life and it's amazing. And just because we haven't figured it out yet, we just want to, like little kids when we are at the Nintendo console, we or when we play Elder Scrolls and stuff, Oblivion. Oh, not the character that I have is not so good. Now I know it a bit better, and I want to start from the beginning with a new character. But we don't get to do that. We just pull through with it, and that's why it's so healthy to come back to the Greek lifestyle, to the Greek ethics, and all. And then this emptiness, this void is going away because we're just living. And I think I answered 100,000 questions that are not have been asked, and the one that's asked I did not answer because there's an answer to it. I wouldn't know about it. Do you?
No, I totally agree with what you said. It's just about accepting where we are, because anything else is just escapism, really. Technically, you said that very well. There's all these mysteries, I think, that we have to accept, and that's the thing with ancient texts and stuff. There's a lot of assumptions that were already made by the culture that those texts were made from. There's a lot of assumptions going on, especially things like the Tao or even the Bhagavad Gita. And I think that we don't really have that assumption in this culture of just accepting mysteries. We want to think we could solve them and then just fight about them, and that makes us feel better about accepting that accepting whatever we chose to cover that mystery, because under that mystery is just fear. Because if you can't control it, you're afraid of it. I can't control it. What am I going to do? And just like you said, we're like little kids, and I think that's great we're like little kids playing video games, but what we don't realize we can reset. We can start from the beginning. Every day we have that opportunity. Every moment is a moment for us to change the game, or and all that came before it is cheating, basically, right? It's all the stuff you get to go through, you get to live through it, and you're still alive after you made all those mistakes. And then we get this amazing gift that people shun all the time. It's this gift of looking back on our mistakes and and looking what we did wrong, and then we could plan the future better, or even just use it in the present moment. When something arises, we could lean back on the past experience and say, well, I didn't like it that much that time, let's try this or whatever it is. But instead, a lot of people get locked in this process of being focused on the past because they get caught in these spirals, and it's really used kind of by, like I was talking about, that voice in our head that we have uses all those past experiences to make us feel bad and to bring us down, and we get caught in these cycles. Whereas if we were just easier on ourselves, we could just say, hey, yeah, I just fucked up, I made a mistake, and next time I'm going to do better. I'm still a great person. Brandon did a great job. He might have made a mistake today, but he's going to learn from it, and tomorrow he's going to do a better job. And it really is that simple. But this separation, going back to that question, but thanks for that question, Tony, too, because it gave us great content to put out there. It sparked some great content. But I think really the key is to see that there is no separation when we're in this realm. You could talk about how many angels can dance on the pin of on the tip of a pin, right? You could talk about that all day. But things like this it's kind of like just exactly what Jeff was saying. You just accept it as baseline, and then you move forward. It's like this whole discussion, and this is a discussion that ever since it popped into my field of view, it's been just irking me. And it's like, do we live on a flat earth? Do we live on a globe? Do we live in a simulation? All these things. And what I've been saying from the beginning, basically, is it doesn't matter where we live. How are you acting in the place where you live? Because it could be all those things. That's what I keep trying to tell people. If this world is internal, it could manifest as a globe to one person, or as a flat plane, or as a whatever it is, because we're just coming through. We're just like a bunch of men in a dark room feeling an elephant when it comes to that stuff. So that's why. And if you could just accept that it's a mystery that we'll really never know. Maybe the center of the universe is you, dear listener, watcher. Maybe you are the center and everything's projected out. And the reason why it looks so dark up there is because it's so far away from you. And all that stuff, it's maybe symbolic, maybe it can help you, but your interest should be here around you, the people, your mom, your dad. What's your relationship like with your family, or your spouse, or your friends, or things like that. But yeah, that was my turn to rant. So
Yeah, good rant though.
thanks.
And and it's in the eye of the beholder, man. That's the kind of the key here. It's okay. Everybody wants to look at the system as being evil, or because all they do is see the negative. And yes, it does produce negative stuff because there's a bunch of humans with a bunch of human flaws and a bunch of negative energies, I guess, for lack of a better term, like different energies that are not in harmony. And so yeah, the totality of everything is going to create negative consequences. However, like the other day, I kind of paused when I was like, yeah, technically, I guess America is the highest calibrated country. At least it was at the time. And I kind of stopped and I'm like, I was going to make a comment like, yeah, this is the best we can do. But I guess in a sense it is. But it's like, okay, everybody looks at the negative aspects of it and they just want to focus in on that and blah, 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 not realizing, okay, we're in a point now we can work on philosophy and spirituality and stuff like that because we're not in survival mode all the time like our ancestors were. That's all they could do, and everybody wants to go back. Well, I just got to go back to being farmers, and we're all going to just work on the lands, and we'll be happy. Yeah, it'll give you meaning. I get what they're saying. Is it goes back to the quote from the beginning. It's like the neurosis is that you don't have any meaning, and that's kind of what Jeff's thesis was about, from what I understand. Is that okay? It's we're losing sight. We're missing the forest for the trees here, people. It's like, okay, we have so much opportunity now, but because everybody, as things have progressed, have lost kind of a meaning here, they're the ones that are causing this to spiral out of control, and that needs to be fixed. It's not that we have to fix the system or the technology or anything like that, because that's actually a gift. We have such a blessing to be incarnated into this times, regardless of all the negative stuff, because there's always going to be negative stuff. Let's forget about that. Let's move beyond that. Like, we can utilize what we have now and work on our spiritual selves, to work on going back to philosophy. And in a sense, I totally agree with Jeff, because I think the world, it lacks the highest level of intellect like that the ancient Greeks had, like that, to max out the linear, because that's how what the people who created America and the other Western countries, when it went from kings and popes to fucking republics, is they also studied all the ancient Greeks. They've also studied all the religions. These people were Freemasons back when that really meant something too. And other secret societies and on that were studying and trying to look behind the veil, and they were studying everybody, and they were studying history, and they were studying like the Native Americans. Everybody likes to say, like in America, like the Native Americans, oh, we just shit on them, blah, blah, blah. And there's elements of truth to that. Like I said, there's negative aspects because we live in a world that's dominated mostly by negative people, but the positive people kind of counteract that. And so what we have is a totality going on, and there is a great opportunity that everybody is missing because they're so laser focused on the problems that they're not seeing the opportunity that's being handed on a silver platter right here. And yeah, so the people who started like America, if you like look into it, they were studying the ancient Greeks, they were studying the religions, they were studying science, the science of the time, they were studying history. And history, like the Native Americans going back, part of how the United States was structured with the 10th Amendment, and that states have the rights that blah, 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 that the federal government was not given by the other amendments, was based off of I think with the Iroquois Nation,
Iroquois, yeah.
Yeah, the Federation or whatever. It was modeled off of that. Like, it was okay. The only way we can have a republic like, say, the United States or modern Germany or the EU or whatever, the only way this works is that, okay, we all have to have a common bond, which like in the United States is the Constitutions, the amendments, the Bill of Rights, blah, blah, blah. But everybody might want to govern themselves a little different, like the Iroquois nation or whatever. So, and this is how to prevent conflict. It is okay. Some people like chocolate ice cream. Some people like a vanilla ice cream. Some people kind of like their society a little more liberal. Some a little more conservative. Okay, then okay, you all govern yourselves, but we all form together a common bond. And it's like, okay, you got to give people the freedom of speech. You got to give people the right to bear arms. Blah blah blah. But other than that, it's like, go ahead, go for it. We won't, each state governs themselves, and collectively, that's why there actually is a fasci. It has nothing to do with fascism as it came about in this century. It's just an old concept that binding it all together. Now we're strong. Now we can make the hatchet. So that's actually the truth of all this, is that everybody studied all this, but because of the way things are unfolding and people are losing meaning, and now they're looking outside themselves, and the grass is always greener on the other side. It's all spiraling out of control. Like it's okay. Think society is degrading, and we're losing sight of the highest level of intellect that the ancient Greeks had, like Plato had, etc. Like, or Socrates and all that. Like, we just have to, yeah, we do need to seek spiritual realms beyond that. And you do what you want. You stay at the intellect, because the intellect is a high level of truth, especially if you push it all the way to the max, and it's linear. And we need that linearness to run society, because society, everything is working linear. Like, it's not non-linear, like everything it's happening upon. So you need that element. You can't just skip that and say, oh, let's go straight to the spirituality, to pure awareness, blah, blah. It's like, yes, but first you have to settle the fucking linear. Like, you have to settle like the intellect, and we're losing that because we're going off into all these weird philosophies that are not based in truth, but subjective opinions and blah, blah, blah. They're not based on logic, like Marxism, etc., on and on. And that is having a corruptive influence, and we're watching it play out through cause and effect, quote unquote. And it's just like, and that's like another misconception. And like, it's like, you don't have to wait till you die to go to heaven. You could experience heaven, the realms of heaven, right now while you still have a physical body. And what happens when you die? Okay, that's kind of a mystery if anybody's going to be honest. We have our general pattern recognition, and we can say in the most general sense, maybe reincarnation's a thing, maybe blah, blah, blah. Maybe you go to a lower astral, higher astral, heaven, hell, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's different for everybody. God knows. But in this realm, you can experience heaven. You can experience unconditional love, peace, etc., because that's already underneath everything. So you can experience that, but you shouldn't just shit on the intellect either, because the intellect is what keeps society going. And so you can't just jump straight into spirituality, but you have to raise up the intellect to be able to have that. And we still have a certain level of intellectual integrity, believe it or not, in our countries. And you can see it play out, that we have infrastructure, and we do have rights. Yeah, they like what happened the last few years is the only instance I could really think of that where it was like, all right, but then it was like mass stupidity, like the crowd madness going on. And in my opinion, the governments were just reacting to all that and trying to appease more than a conspiracy. It really, truly, to me, at this point, looks like a conspiracy of stupid more than anything else. Just herd mentality. Like the lowest common denominator energies got dominated the fucking world. And like we see this with the witch burnings and on and on and on. Like people in a certain energy, they're quick to burn you at the stake is the truth of the matter. And they still walk among us, and they still make up the majority for the most part. And that's just how it is. And that's why negative things are playing out in our world. But seize the day, guys. It's like you have such an opportunity in this lifetime to not grow spiritually, and you can also add on to the system. Like Jeff was saying, like there's all kinds of stuff going on in the intellectual realm in academia. Okay, the mainstream aspects is also pandering to the lowest common denominator again. It's kind of like a religion of scientism, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that that's all that's going on in academia. No. There's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things, and you could too. You could too. If you have a theory that you're like, oh, I don't really like the model of this cosmology, there seems to be flaws with it, you can work and present that and work that into the system, and maybe your model will be the better model, like how Jung's model is kind of better than Freud's, on and on. Well, and better, but kind of more expansive, like higher level of truth, so to speak. So it's like you can do that too. And it's like they're not going to accept that the earth is flat. Oh, it's like, because you don't offer any good fucking proof. Like, and they see it. And it's like, yeah, they're just mainstream, there's parroting, and yeah, many of them are. Not that that's not true, but it's like you're bringing shit that's easily just fucking proven, and you're like, no, I proved it. It's like, no, man. You're looking through a certain lens. You're putting the cart before the horse. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. And of course you're proving that. But when somebody who hasn't brainwashed themselves with hundreds, if not thousands of fucking hours, and watching memes every day, building up that charge and getting themselves into that field, and then they go all get together and get arrogant, and they project onto the other fucking people what they are experiencing, like oh, they're just parroting, they're just sheep, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, dude, I'm seeing the exact opposite. I see a lot of projection going on, like actually, because I've met people, and it's like, and I'm one of them, I guess. Like I was open to the idea, but when I look at the evidence, I'm like, that's not what it looks like. You're not taking into account a lot of nuance. Like you're putting the cart before the horse. You're trying to prove what you already believe is fucking true. That's not how it works. Things like the scientific method and the trivium and the quadrivium were there for a reason, because we understood that the mind could not be trusted. Like the mind is a beautiful instrument, but you need the owner manual. So things like the scientific method and like the trivium and quadrivium are to teach you not what to think, but how to think, how to look at things, how to work through it, how to get around the idea of consciousness, that what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. We're trying to get around that. We're trying to approach it and try to be as integrous as possible here. Like, and people have just thrown that completely out the window. And then they wonder why people who are not indoctrinated into that energy, like that haven't spent hundreds of thousands of hours just constantly, even today, everybody who believes that is juicing it nonstop today. How many memes did you see today? How many videos did you watch today? How many times have you talked about this today? Like you're constantly adding to that fucking charge. You're not seeing it clearly. Like you're putting the cart before the horse, and we need to go back to learning how to work the mind, to build upon it, to create better models. You don't like the model? I don't like the model completely either. I think there's flaws in it, but in the most general sense, it seems to be true, but we can expand on it. But you don't even want to attempt it. You say, like, this is not my interest. This is like a tertiary interest at best to me. Like, I just looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, but I really don't care. But some people do. Some people, that is their passion. Fine, fair enough. Like, go into academia, do what you have to do, put it out there. Maybe you won't get accepted. You know how many philosophers and scientists and shit were shit on when they first put out their stuff, and it was like generations later that it got picked up. If that's how it's going to unfold, that's God's will, so be it. Like, but do something. Stop bitching. Stop complaining. Stop making stuff up. Stop just saying this vibes at me, and like, no shit, it vibes at you. Anything you hold is going to vibe with you. It's just a neutral aspect of consciousness. Like, like if you hold something inside, maybe you're even unconscious of what you're holding inside. Anything you see outside yourself, you're going to see that pattern because you're a part of that field. That field is a part of you. So no shit, it vibes with you. But that doesn't mean it's true or false. Like, it has nothing to do with that. I don't want to say facts don't care about your feelings. It's like feelings and thoughts are work on the axis. They're equally as important. But it's like, dude, like, stop bitching. Stop trying to prove what a victim you are and making up stuff and then coming back and correcting that stuff. Like I see so many times people make themselves the victim. They made something up and then they do something to fix the problem that they already created. And then in their mind, they're like, haha, I succeeded. I'm not a victim anymore. It's like, no, you're still a victim because you just made that shit up and you just solved the shit you made up. Like, so yeah, it's like you have to like get rid of the gunk inside you first off so you can see things clearly, because you're not seeing it clearly if you got tons of gunk. If you're charging it nonstop, like it's like you're not going to see it. You have you're looking through sludge. I think of like the Rick and Morty episode, because this is literally what was my experience, that after like a couple of months, I felt like a layer of sludge got taken out of my perception, and I finally got a little bit more clarity. I got a lot more work to do, but I got more clarity. And then like I think of that Rick and Morty episode where they have all that sludge inside them. They go to like the alien clinic or whatever, and it gets sucked out of them, and then they're like their perfect self, so to speak. But because it all happened at once instead of being released one by one, it was a whole entity there. So there was like a sludge Morty and a sludge Rick, and like and they wanted to take over the world and turn it into sludge. And yeah, Morty didn't want, yeah, anyway, but that was basically the episode. And like and that is really kind of truthful. That is going on inside of us. We're looking through fucking sludge. And if you're angry or triggered about anything I just said, look inside you and see why that triggers you. Like, because I guarantee it's that where that triggers arising from is what's producing the sludge. Like, it's almost guaranteed. So I don't know. This is just my view of everything. And I don't know. I'm so tired of hearing about what a victim everybody is and making up new reasons to be a victim. And just saying, just being completely polarized. Everything that's in the mainstream is false. It's like, no, you flip the pole on that. Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit out there because there's all kinds of people with agendas and shit like that. But come on, like that's not true. That everything is a lie. You have no proof on that. It's a complete assumption. You put the cart before the horse. You're going to continuously prove yourself right. You're digging deeper and deeper and deeper. You're collecting more and more sludge, and you're making yourself sick, and you're making society worse. And on and on and on, because you don't see what you're doing here, because you just went full retard on it. Like, just pull back a little. Like, pull back a little. Try to see some nuance here. Like, try to see that, okay, it's not just all negative. There is positive aspects. Try to see, okay, we need to have foundations on stuff and not just have a blind assumption and build from there. That's building on sand. Like, no wonder like it doesn't work out for you. No wonder you ran off all your family and friends. Because you look at how you're behaving because of what's going on inside you. Like, and you're doing it to yourself. And then you project on everybody else that they're sheep. No. Anybody saying that this person, that person's a sheep, you really should look in the mirror. And I say this out of experience. I've been there before too. I've had the sludge in me. I charge these bullshit theories. I built on assumptions. I built on polarizations. You're not a mystery to me, man. Like, I know I was you. That's why I know what's going on. So, yeah.
And we are probably all are definitely still doing it to some degree. That's what a blind spot is. And I want to reiterate what Joe said is perfect. If you are triggered by anything he said, that's what I was trying to say about when people argue about the realm, right? Well, what is it? Is it round? Is it a ball? Is it, is it flat? But it's like, no. Take one step back. None of that really matters. It's the argument that you're having with this person that matters right now, because you're alienating yourself you probably have so many more things in common with this person who you have this disagreement with about the shape of the realm, right? Not you, Joe, but any listener, right, who finds himself in the situation, if it sounds familiar, you probably have a lot more in common with this person than that you're communicating with, but you're not focusing on any of that. It's the same thing with gratitude. It comes down to that. You could be having this life where you think everything's the worst, right? Everything bad always happens to me. But look down. Do you have legs? Can you walk? Can you talk? Can you swim? Can you eat? Can you breathe? All these things, do you have a car? Do you have a cell phone? Do you have a bicycle? Do you have all these? Do you have a computer? You can focus on all these positive things, and that's kind of how you get out of the negative funk. It's one way to do it. And it's the same with a conversation you have with somebody. I learned this in sales years ago. The salesman is really good. I was talking to him, and he's like, you want to build bridges of common interest with people when you're talking to them, like, and selling cars. It's kind of like, oh, where are you from? You're from the same town. Where'd you go to school? Oh, I went there. And you just building common ground and building bridges. And in that scenario, you're trying to sell something. But in the scenario where you're just interacting with people in your life, you're really making the world a better place by, and it's not like it's our job to fix the world or make the world a better place or whatever, but I'm talking in the context of somebody who thinks the world's like evil and all this stuff, right? This is your little way to make the world better, because everywhere you go, you're going to brighten people's day just a little bit. Or you can argue about the moon and the moon landing and all this stuff. And listen, I don't know what's right, because I am not God, and I can only look for my limited perception. Yeah, it's a little higher than most because I'm 6'5", so maybe I can see things coming before others. But really, at the end of the day, if you want a little more peace or happiness or more friends in your life, just look for common ground. It doesn't really, to me, it doesn't matter so much about things like that. Now if you come across someone and they're just a liar, well, that's different, or they're just like a person you can't depend on, because a lot of people will say, well, if they don't see the truth of this realm or whatever, or the truth of certain like psyops that are going on, I won't be able to trust them. No, you just have to find someone that's a good heart, and if they're trustworthy, then you just bond on this other stuff. And then when things like 2020 happen, like Joe was saying, what came up into my mind was there really wasn't what really happened. If you want to look at the most objective truth, what happened in 2020, there's a bunch of people in society living this lie. They're living a lie. And just the financial system, you can look at it, right? When it comes to finance and currency and how we spend things and how usury is such a huge thing, we're pretty much living a lie. And since that system wasn't working, because, they have to print money and all this stuff, right? Since it doesn't balance, something had to happen to crash that system. But because everyone's going along and believe in the lie, they didn't want to ruin the party, right? So a virus comes along, or whatever it is comes along, this whole thing that shuts down the economy. And it's just like a crash, but it's in reverse, and it gives people a feeling. Now they can come together. So instead of being depressed that the economy crashed, everyone's like, hey, we came together and we're working through this, and we're going to get through this together. So even if you think that's evil, which I'm not saying it was the best way to go about it, it was the best way that these people could figure out to get us through it. The people who are quote unquote whatever in control, because nobody else wants to take personal responsibility. They're out there living this lie and believing the lie. So they're like, all right, we got to come up with a good lie. Maybe that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah. As it went down. So there really is nobody to blame. But like Joe said, you could call people sheep. You could say it's their fault. But really, they're just not ready to see the truth. They're just like flowers that haven't bloomed yet. So if you're screaming at these people because they're sheep, you're just like, you're yelling at flowers that haven't bloomed. And really what I'm saying is you're just looking at it from the wrong way. You just flip it around, look at it from the other way. You look at, like I said, how you can be grateful, and look at yourself when you want to point the finger at somebody else. When someone triggers you, there's a reason you're getting triggered. Like you said, get offended as you like, folks. Like we're going to talk about all these uncomfortable things, but there is a point of view that you could get to where every time you're triggered, you could say to yourself, oh shit, what is it about that triggered me? What is it in me that I can't accept about that other person? I want them to be different, but they're not. You're just not accepting it. And what is it about me, right?
Yeah.
I'll let you talk, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think we are still in on point with the topic. I mean, we haven't talked about the archetype yet, but um, I think it's very good to know why we are talking about something, what we want to do with it, why we do it, why it's necessary to really do the groundwork before we take off. Um, and it's crazy and scary when I sit down more and more. I I really I for years I studied every conspiracy theory and I know him by heart. Ah, all the politics, geopolitics, religions, whatever, philosophy, and the more I study, the more I understand. Like, how no shit, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's just endless. And I got so exhausted that I am at the point. It looks so cool. My eye looks like it's a computer.
Yeah. Dragon Ball Z.
And it's just I naturally came to a point where I'm so exhausted that I just want to sit. Maybe I came to an age, I'm beyond 35, and it's so interesting. I heard today in an audiobook that a man below 35, if he doesn't have his anima integrated, it doesn't matter because he has to be masculine. He has to work on his masculinity. But beyond that, beyond 35, not integrated, he's going to be a whiny bitch and most likely an alcoholic. I found it very interesting. And and I'm and I'm past 35 and I just like to sit down and I'm becoming an old man. I just sit down and I do not want to engage in all this theories anymore. I just sit and I breathe and I don't want to think anymore because I have so much shit to think about. I just want to there is this there's this term called otium versus negotium. Otium, negotium. It's Cicero wrote about it. Otium is the basically doing nothing, walking around doing nothing, just thinking and perceiving. And the negotium, negotiation, is the work. And we strive to be able to sit. We strive to put everything in order, and when it's in order, when the realm is in order, meaning the state and the public affairs and the private affairs, then we can philosophize and then we can relax. So I'm at this point and I want to relax. And I sit down and then things come up, emotions and all. Today, I spent half my day crying today. Because I woke up in the morning and I realized something about my childhood and integrating my inner child and all these things. And I'm like, whoa, 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 I have to let it flow. I have to let it flow. And I put all my concentration on not thinking, but pushing it up. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And it's just, there is so much happening inside of me that I don't have time for theories anymore. You know, I went on a bicycle ride to my friend's house, 2 hours bicycle ride. And believe it or not, the world is not flat, man. It went up. It went up and up the hill and down and up again. And then I thought it's mostly uphill. So when I drive back, it will be mostly downhill. No, it wasn't. I don't understand it, but it's always uphill.
Yeah.
I'm just babbling, but you know, it's just and there's so much coming up, and I believe that the inner work, just the perceiving and sitting and not thinking too much, but just perceiving and you know what is there, this is so valuable, and this is the hardest work ever. And it is so crazy. Um then I get glimpses. It's a huge picture, a huge global picture where so many things fall together. Like I'm in myself, I see myself, everything. It's like 360 degrees view. And then I realize, oh, this is how I am. This is why I'm always rejected by people, or this or that, why love doesn't work the way that I want to, or whatever it is. And I realize, oh yeah, that's my mindset. And then I realize it, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it's like a trip. And I don't need to take psychedelics because as soon as I sit still, I'm tripping balls. And it's just, and then I realize, oh my gosh, and everything caves in. And it is like the realization when I'm on mushrooms, I realize I am God and there is no other God to help me. I have to work shit out myself. And it hits me like a hammer. And then I realize, okay, this is me. This is me. This is the full extent of me. And I have to take responsibility and have to work it out. And I'm projecting my bullshit onto the world. And this is why the world is reacting like that. And then as soon as I start thinking, it's closing again. And I believe that's the beautiful thing about the psychedelics, because it interrupts our logical thinking process. And then we perceive all these crazy things. But I mean, as soon as we sit, we perceive crazy things. And there is stuff inside of us. And it's just remarkable. And I don't know if we will manage to talk about the archetype today, but really, it's just like that groundwork that we don't need a theory, we don't need this or that. It's just we are such complex being. We are part of this world, of the world soul, and we are so complex, and everything is in us. We are spirit, and we are body, and we are a bunch of bullshit, and we are beauty and this and that, and it's just, and there's such a rich thing inside of us, and working on that is so much more rewarding than any outside thing I have ever seen. It's just it yeah, it's just crazy. And yeah, will we manage to talk about the anima today?
Well, you know what I think we could do? I love everything you said, by the way, but we could wrap this up shortly and then do another episode, a part 2 to this. This way we can keep it around 2 hours and digestible for people. And PK in the chat says, Earth is not flat or round, it's uphill.
Yeah, mine is. I hate it.
You know what I love about, that's what I love about this chat and the channel that I've grown and that we've grown with the Oversharing shows, because most times if I went on a show and I started talking about this stuff, there'd just be fighting in the chat or like ridicule, but there's just jokes there, because everybody knows it's like, it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day if you're right about that, because if you're an asshole your whole life, you're just gonna have a shitty life, even if you right, even if you're right about what you think this realm is. You could be 100% right and you could still be an asshole. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you find yourself in these groups and blah blah blah, where if that was the reaction that everybody would dogpile, then you guys are the reincarnation of the witch burners. You want to point your finger and project out onto everyone else. No, you are that. You are coming out of that energy. You do not see it, because if the shoe fits, you don't feel it. But there's so many red flags if you're actually watching in your own behavior and the people you're surrounding yourself with and the content creators and groups, blah, blah, blah. You know how rare it is that somebody comes into Brandon's chat and acts like that? I mean, there's probably people that are a little bit triggered because, I know people's triggers. I'm not oblivious to it. For a long time, I tried to people please and stay on the fence. But at this point, I'm like, I don't care. Let your chips fall. But it's like Brandon and Sharon have built like this community that is freaking epic. It's beautiful. It's small, but the more people you add, the more you get to the lowest common denominator kind of thing. But it's just like Find me one truth channel where everybody isn't acting like a complete asshole. Find me one. And that's not a red flag to you? Like, like, come on. How are you making the world a better place? You're making it worse. Like you don't see it. You're making it worse. Like, so yeah, but yeah, that's all I had to say.
And like the quote that I love, fools who persist in their folly eventually become wise. That's kind of how I look at this. Not that I look at people like that as fools, but it's more of what that quote means. Because I know there's several times where I had to persist in my folly until I figured it out. And really, it's just about, I don't know, it's about what's most important to you. And I feel like when you get in these groups, that's what happens. You isolate, and then everyone else becomes the other. It kind of turns into like cultish behavior, but it's just really how everything works with people. It's not that is a cult and it's bad. It's like even just culture, just the mainstream is a cult as well in that same way. But I don't know where I was going with that. It's really like we said, what at the end of the day we're talking about just to live a little more peacefully and a little less chaos. And again, not that there's anything wrong with chaos, but it's about, I guess, just getting to know yourself better. And when you do, you realize that no one else's opinion really matters. Everybody's just guessing. Because when their opinion matters so much to you, it goes back to what I was saying earlier in this episode. It's people looking for exterior validation from outside sources when everything that you need is it's within you. It's just like it comes back. You ever see the movie Swingers? There's this movie with Swingers, like one of Vince Vaughn's first movies, and Vince Vaughn's character plays this guy who's like the best friend of this guy who's just lost. He just got out of a relationship and he's depressed, and they're going out and trying to pick up women or whatever. And Vince Vaughn's trying to tell him, he's like, "You're like this giant bear with claws, and you're asking me how to kill this rabbit." It's like, just kill the rabbit, man. I don't know what to tell you. You got the claws and the teeth, and really it's so simple, but that's what we're doing. We're just men and women, and we just got to be men and women. We don't have to second guess everything we do and torture ourselves and be slaves to everything that we do and every little thing we say and mistake we make. We're just here to live. We're gonna fuck up. We're gonna piss people off. Not everyone's gonna like us, and when we could accept those things, we're really accepting ourselves when we're doing that. So
What I would like to add is the topic or those topics that we are interested in, and everybody in that chat are not everyday topics. They are way beyond everybody else. It is really it's in the nature of the things that most people will not understand, will not engage in these topics, because they do not have the time nor the interest or the capacity to grasp it, or the basic knowledge about that. So that's another thing, to be gentle with the people around. And for myself, for example, it started with being gentle to myself and not taking things so serious, and that I might have learned a few things and really invested time in that, but I don't have to put it out there for everybody and force everybody to convert to my own religion and all. Yeah, and that's a thing with the Anima. We really have to make an episode on that, because why I asked you guys about that is there's this split when the Anima is not in tune, not integrated.
in balance, maybe you could say too.
Yeah, the split, like when we look at women, for example, that there is a very that was that ludicrous or so. I want a lady on the street, but a freak in the bed.
Oh,
This is
lady
the
in the street, but
time,
freaking yeah.
or was it? I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed
yeah,
from Yeah by Usher, but it's ludicrous.
yeah, sure, yeah,
I had to
yeah,
play that song all the
yeah.
time. I know it.
and that is the basic expression of a dysfunctional relationship with the own anima. And I realized that when I practiced Islam, because I wanted to marry a Muslim girl, and it was a hard time, very dysfunctional. She wanted to escape that mindset, that paradigma, and yeah, and I I had to dive into it, and I realized that this is basically it's you know, like that we are obsessed with virgins. The woman has to be a virgin, but the also sex is important, and it should be fun. It's not like Catholics, and you know, but so it's like this: at home she should be like a whore for me, but should be a virgin, and all these. So it's a very interesting thing, and that got me into um that idea, yeah, that you know, Islam, for example, is a way of patching, dealing with inadequate human beings. It's not forcing people to be like that. I mean, originally not Sunni Islam, no, not that. But what I mean is like that got me to think. It's like, the it's that's the liberal part. If we can really integrate that, you know, like how to view sexuality, how to view our partners. I mean, I don't really care to talk about the animus at this point because it's not for my own development. So the anima is more important for me personally. Um, and it supposedly is you know, the part of the mother complex. It's a very primal thing, and the most powerful thing, I guess, that's inside of us. And I think this is really, really important, and I would like to discuss this to understand it better, not on a YouTube University level, but really on a level of, you know, looking into the books and this and that, and what do what can be done and what does it mean when it's dysfunctional and all. Because it's we were rambling a lot, but the human relations are fundamental to our existence. And if we are right, and the earth is this or that, and the earth is uphill, I am right. Um,
Uphill
but,
Earth.
you know, it's like when
Uphill Earth.
the up earth. So, but when we are right about everything, and we are so smart, but everybody hates us, and we are lonely, then this is not the life that we want. And so I'm really interested in the human relations, and how to make myself into a better man. Um, and I think it starts with the anima. I think this is the easiest part to engage with the whole topic. I mean, not easy as in solving, but easy in starting. And yeah, I would like to have your guys' opinion on that, because you worked a lot with the Myers-Briggs and Jung in general, and yeah, for the next time.
Part two.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's a nice little teaser for next time. Something I was gonna say, but now I totally forgot. It'll come back to me, no worries. This topic to me though is great because, like you said, you have to lay all this foundation, and we're kind of just shooting the shit, going off each other, but it's perfect, and it's leading up to exactly, I think, what is at the crux of this, because everything we set up until this point is, I feel, something that you should have at least a basic understanding of, or at least realize that it's a belief system that's possible, you know, looking at the world the way we do. Because when we cover topics like the anima, it's going to make a lot more sense, especially for men. But, you know, women you're going to love this information too, because then you could probably understand maybe how your partner is working better. So I feel
Yeah.
like it's good to know this stuff either way. And I'll say the last thing I'll say about this topic, I guess, is this is something I had to learn myself. I think I had an issue with the sacred feminine with and it caused me to, you know, display this crazy behavior, like womenizing behavior, I guess you could say. I had really severe intimacy issues. And so I this like hits home. It's exactly, now that I've kind of overcame this stuff in my life, I could see it now in other people. And there's other content creators too and stuff that I used to watch or would watch more. And I got a lot of information out of them. Like, and then you just get to a point, and that's what I saw. I'm like, oh, I just see there's like this hatred toward women, or like a hatred toward the sacred feminine going on. And
Horrible.
you know, what's that all about? So, yeah.
Yeah, because women are so amazing, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's just. Mm.
Such
I always have
beautiful.
this. I always have this in mind. I don't know if I've talked about that. I once was like Latin night at some lounge, and I was there by myself, and there was an older couple. Both were somewhere from Latin America. They were like over 60 or so, and you know, the guy having the beard like really like neatly shaved and whatever, and he was dancing with his wife, and they were both way beyond their prime, but he was dancing and he moved her, and he's like, my woman. And I saw that, I'm like, my gosh, and that burned into my mind, like that joy that that he tasted the moment, you know. He his woman was the most delicious thing for him, and she was dancing, and you know, he was man and she was woman, and that was beautiful. And that is, I don't know, man, I want to be that. I want to be the man, and really understand women, and have my woman that I love every day, you know, and not be like this pickup shit and whatever, you know, like but really like. And it comes down to sorting myself out, and I believe that's the best thing, because you know, then a man has his woman, they make babies, the babies, they grow up, they become adults, and when we are healthy, we have healthy babies, healthy adults, and you know, this is how we can make an impact. And the people around us, they will see that, it will be, oh, you're so nice, how are you like that? And you know, and this is how we change the world, you know. And yeah,
100%.
I believe it's beautiful to start with, yeah, this.
You really, you're healing this generational trauma that's been passed down. That's kind of like the gift that we get from our parents. I know in my case it is, and it's up to me if I want to stop it or perpetuate it. And that's another way, you know, like you were saying, that's kind of how you change the world. And I'll tell you, as somebody who, I've been in a relationship now, and this relationship is like none other than I've ever been in, because I'm really honest and serious with myself. And I'm starting to see that, like you said, women are just different creatures, and they're so beautiful. And if you can, as a man, provide a safe space for that woman, you're going to change your whole world. You're going to, if you could accept her the way she is. And that's what I'm realizing. And I tell Elizabeth, I'm like, there's nothing about you, like, get it, we're both into self work and stuff, but where you are right now, you're perfect. Like, I keep telling her, you're perfect how you are. Like, you might have had a nervous breakdown the other day about work or something or whatever it was, but I still love you. You're perfect. You're only reacting normally to a situation that's insane. I get it. Like, this is a normal reaction. Most people don't have this reaction to a 9 to 5 job because they're dulling their senses or they have escapism or whatever going on. You know, but anyway, so as I'm providing this safe space, because what I realize is women, they have this tendency, even if it's unconscious, they like to test the man that they're with, because, and it's safe. If you think about it, it makes sense, because if they're going to leave their safety and security up to this man, have children with this man, have to depend on this man for the rest of their life, they want to make sure that when shit goes wrong, that this guy's not just going to bolt or act feminine, really, right? Act too crazy. And I've noticed that. And in past relationships, those testings were the triggers that triggered me to trigger a fight. And it's not like we're perfect. I'm sure once in a while we'll, have an argument or whatever. But now when those triggers happen, I try to say, what is it in me that's triggering it? Why can't I provide the safe space for her? Yeah, she might be wrong about something, but she's the woman, the emotional, the feeler. It's up to her. This is her gauge. This is what it's telling her. Now I'm the rational one. I could kind of look at it from a logical standpoint, or however it works. But that whole mind process that I just described about how I'm trying to figure it out is much better and healthier than before, when I would be like, oh, this lady's just bitching because of whatever, So it really is beautiful, and it really is the best form of self work that I've found so far. The mirror is just amazing. If you if you look at it as amazing, it could be terrible and annoying if that's your point of view. So, if you're a man who's listening to this and that's the problem they've had with women, maybe it's you. Maybe it isn't the woman. Maybe you can't be a safe space. Maybe your triggers are too much for you to handle, and this woman doesn't want to spend the rest of her life with you because of that.
Joe, please say it. What you said to me the other day. It's all the man's fault. Please say it.
Yeah, oh yeah, it
Start
is.
the rant. Do it.
Yeah. Well, even if it is her fault, you can't change her. You can change yourself, and she can adapt. And if she can't adapt and you can't discover an equilibrium, then at some point, in my opinion, you should be like, okay, maybe this person is not for me. Maybe I have an attachment to this because I'm scared to be alone or whatever. So that might be the case, but from what I understand, you can only change yourself, and if you change something inside you, like you're always fighting, you're both charging one another. It's up to you. You're conscious of it, so take the charge away, and then she's left holding it herself, and then she's either got to find some sort of equilibrium in the relationship to adjust to the new you, or she's not, and then maybe it's time to move on. But you can only change yourself, and it's always your fault. Just go in it like it's always my fault, even if like Brandon was saying she's wrong or whatever. It's like, who cares? Just it doesn't matter. You still have to. You're the one. You're the conscious one. You're the one that has to change. And in my experience, an equilibrium always gets established, a new one, and you find kind of a balance of how your relationship works. And I think relationships are all about balance. You can't be selfish. You can't, like, if you're a woman, you can't make the man kneel all the time and vice versa. Like, there has to be a a push and a pull. There has to be some sort of equilibrium. And the only reason you're fighting all the time is because there's no equilibrium, and it's like a power struggle. So got to break the chain.
The thing about being if you realize you're the most conscious person in a relationship, now this doesn't mean it's just for the men, everybody. Like, you could be a woman and be the most conscious person. I know you know that too, Joe. You could be a woman and be the most conscious person in the relationship, and then you're just like, yeah, you're right. And then, like Joe said, you change this aspect in yourself, and then it's up to that other person if they want to balance out and stay around you with that equilibrium, or if they just want to shoot on to the next person. And I think also, if you can work on your fear of being alone, if you have that fear of being alone, because I think that's another thing that keeps people in relationships that maybe they shouldn't be in. But it's all a learning process.
Yeah, if you're in a relationship for decades and all you do is fight, there's something inside you. One, that you probably enjoy that energy of fighting, but two, you're probably terrified of being alone, and you won't end it because you're like, I'm not going to find anyone else. But that's not true. There's literally, if you're a man or woman, there's billions of people on this fucking planet. Find another one. Like, there's somebody that you can establish an equilibrium with. No one's ever going to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. You're not going to have all the same interest. You're not going to be the same people. You have to establish an equilibrium. And it's up to you if you're the conscious one to do that. So.
Love it. All right. Well, I guess we could. Anything else you want to say, Jeff, before we get out of here? We can wrap this up here and then come back for part 2. Dive more into the concept.
No, not right now.
All right. We talk. Wait, you don't have anything to say? Are you sure? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just only saying that because I'm an INTP also, and I know. Like, wait, Brandon, you have nothing to say, Brandon? Are you sure? All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us for another episode of the Brandon Bonanza show podcast that we do here. I just want you guys to know that you can also check us out on BitChute. All my videos are mirrored and get uploaded to BitChute. So if anything ever happens to this channel, because YouTube is weird, I got another video taken out. Like a lot of my older videos from 2020 are getting taken down now. I'm like, all right. They didn't give me any strikes though or threaten me though, so I'm not really too worried. And the stuff we talk about isn't really on their radar these days. So not that I'm too worried about it, but if you absolutely hate YouTube, go to BitChute. And if you're listening to this on BitChute, comment, let us know what you think. And to support us, you can go to morelawsmoreproblems.com. There's several ways there to support Brandon Bonanza financially, but like we always say, the best way to support us is to subscribe where you listen, hit the thumbs up, interact, comment, hang out in the chat when we're live or when we premiere these, and let us know what you think. And if you are a bot, I will kick you out. I kicked somebody out of the chat earlier. The guy seemed cool. Was the guy talking about mushrooms, but then he started talking about how the word of God is the only truth. And usually that's, the Bible, and usually those are bots. But it's funny. I'm like, then I was thinking, I'm like, is he trying to entrap me? Like, yeah, send me some mushrooms. Like, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, I'll send. Sure, fed on YouTube. Let me send you mushrooms. Like, I don't even have any mushrooms. Like, but yeah. Anyway, so. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Thank you, Joe and Jeff, for coming and talking about this and sharing aspects of your life. It really means a lot to me, and I think that means a lot to all of our viewers. So until next time, make sure you check out part 2, and I'll put the link in this below. So if you're watching this sometime in the past, just go to the link and click part 2, and you could go right there automatically. It's like no time will even pass. You could just binge Brandon Bonanza all day and night. All right, everybody, thanks a lot for hanging out. Here's the song. Shout out to Quentin Farrell. Oh, I didn't share the sound. I got it ahead of this time. It should just be automatic. Oh no, it is on. Never mind. Scatting to myself. Shout out to Quentin. And now I can't find the video. All right. This is great. Did I exit out? It was the show that never ended. Oh, I see what I did. I minimized it. Nope. All right. Anyway, we're gonna get there eventually, everybody. I promise. I don't know what I did with the song. Theme song all night long. Here we go. Oh, maybe not.
Take your time. It's a process.
It's a process. This is how we end the show, everybody. All right, guys. Until next time, enjoy the music. Shout out to Quentin Farrell, and we'll see you next time.
Bonanza, we're hanging out. It's the Brandon Bonanza show. Bonanza, we're hanging out on the Brandon Bonanza show. Hanging out on the Brandon Bonanza show. Yeah.
He
All
really
right.
did do a good job on that song.
Yeah, he did a great job. Awesome. Oh my God, that's so crazy. We went for 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 40 seconds.